Hi, everyone. Good evening and good morning to our Indian and US audience. Welcome to the latest edition of Theatre Every's Fireside Chat Series. I'm your host, Abhishek Pandey, a senior business consultant from Theatre Every's Digital Innovation and Software Product Engineering Business Unit. Today, we'll be talking about building enduring business value using MLOps. And we are delighted to have Vishal Bhasin with us today as our expert guest speaker. Vishal is the Senior Vice President of Technology and Operations and MD of Data Excel India. Data Excel partners with global teams on product management, engineering, analytics, and data science, and IT and operations to deliver business mandate. Vishal has had a career of over 2 decades as a transformational leader with extraordinary success in positively impacting the revenue and increasing performance by setting and scaling world class enterprises. Prior to Data Excel, Vishal's experience has spanned across marquee organizations like Viacom 18 as head of technology, senior head of delivery in Verizon, among others. Welcome to Theatre Every's Fireside Chat, Vishal.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Abhishek.
So, just before we get into the discussion, here's how it will flow. We'll focus on the what, the why, and the how of MLOps today. And I would request the audience to post questions and comments through the Q&A option, which is on your top in the MS Teams. You can post your questions and comments during the discussion, and we would be taking Q&A at the end. So let us begin. Let me, before we actually post a question to Vishal, let me bring up a visual and then start the questions. So, Vishal, starting with the basics, what is ML ops? What is this? The new buzzword all about?
Uh, so first, I'll talk about the formal definition of ML ops, and then I want to provide some context for all of us to understand what is it and why is it so critical. So first, the formal definition. ML ops is a core function of machine learning engineering focused on streamlining the process of taking machine learning models to production and then maintaining and monitoring them. It is also a set of practices for collaborating and communicating between multiple stakeholders which are involved in machine learning: data scientists, data engineering, data engineers, and operational professionals. Now, the context. Cool. Uh, I worked on the first project, which was a ridiculously expensive reporting system, and we used to build cubes on top of it. And if we were able to find out a customer who has ordered a product in two different business units of an organization, it was a tremendous success. It was a huge deal that we were able to connect the customer to two different BUs. That was the state way back then. Fast forward 10 to 15 years, we have started gathering more data. We had Hadoop come into the picture, and I was working in my machine learning team, and the entire team was actually focusing on two models. If we're able to find the lifetime value of the customer, and if we can predict the retention bonus we should give to the customer, that was the biggest deal. So you can imagine we have evolved from a time where generating a report what used to be big, then we evolved to a place where we are focusing on uh, limited number of models for machine learning. Fast forward now, ML is becoming the center of operation, not for the big tech companies which we are aware of, but for all the companies these days. It is no longer a quote unquote competitive advantage. It has become a necessity for the sustenance of these organizations. Machine learning is helping the individuals and the businesses deploy solutions that unlock previously untapped sources, both for revenue and for cost savings. and the kind of customer experience we are able to provide is phenomenal. And this trend is only going to improve. Okay. The global machine learning market size is expected to grow by a CAGR of around 40% for the next decade. Imagine if our wealth start increasing in that direction. Now, applying these ML ops practices increases the quality, simplifies the management process, and automates the deployment of these machine learning models in a large scale environment. That is why everybody is talking about ML ops. ML ops has become so critical, and it is become important for the business transformation journey of the businesses, Abhishek.
So, just to kind of do a bit of myth busting, we use this ML ops and AI ops. These are very overlapping terms, but what's your take on this? Just do a bit of myth busting for us.
I don't know why there's comparison between the two, because AI ops is actually using use of artificial intelligence for IT operations. It's an application of AI and related technologies such as machine learning and natural language processing to traditional IT ops activities and tasks. So what has also happened, Abhishek, is as the complexity of our environment and the software increases, so is the data we are generating from different applications. And also that's one side of the story. The other side of the story is the expectation of the customer is completely evolving and changing. Imagine, would you ever stay in a site which takes even 3 seconds to load? You will just go back out of the site
Yeah.
and start looking for alternate options. So multiple things are happening. A, customer expectation is changing. B, large complex IT applications. So IT teams, IT operations team have nowhere to go but up their games. They got to make sure that they're able to collect the data from different sources, be it the applications, be it the network appliances, be it from all of these periphery instruments and applications, and make sure that they're able to find patterns, make sense out of that, so that they're able to prevent the outages, maintain the uptime, and attain continuous service assurance. This has become a necessity for the IT teams. Hence, Gartner in around 2016-17 timeframe coined this term of AI ops. I don't think there's a lot of correlation with ML ops as we are talking about. So I don't know where this myth came from.
Yeah, thanks for busting it. And just on a lighter note, before we make the discussion more core and serious, um, if you're a Marvel fan, are we moving more towards the Iron Man scenario where you know you have a Jarvis at your hands and which runs a business, has a maintains an assembly line, manufactures an entire legion of Iron Man? Is that something which we are moving towards in this evolutionary journey of businesses towards getting more smarter and better? Is this what MLOps will add to? Just
I'm
on
a
related terms.
I'm a Bollywood fan. I don't know what you're talking about. If it was something related to Amitabh Bachchan, I would have answered, but not this one.
Okay. Okay, so
See, so
then, yeah, sorry, please go ahead.
so on a serious note, so what is happening, Abhishek, is we saw that AI and ML is becoming uh, core of the business strategy for a lot of companies, and as more and more companies start embedding decision automation in wide range of their applications and products, it also generates a lot of technical challenges that come with it. Um, I don't want to dishearten everybody by saying this is complicated, but it does require dedicated attention to make sure that we are able to build and deploy the right ML systems. So let's talk about the complexity which is bringing. A is the data. According to TechJury, every person in 2020 created 1.7 MB of data per second. So when you're focusing on machine learning, you got to make sure that that data is cleansed and processed and managed. That's one sort of complexity. Then we are talking about model building, model training, model tuning, deployment, monitoring, and all those things. Right? So that's another round of complexity. Now, when we talk about, you rightly talked about multiple things tying together. And when there are these many components, it requires collaboration and handoff from one team to another. In this particular case, from data engineer to data science and all that. So what is going on right now is, while there is an intent to focus on machine learning, there are a whole lot of companies which are not able to leverage it as much as they want to focus on the business value. One estimate suggests that around 83% of the models built are never do not make it to the production.
Yeah.
Right? So there is intent, there is data, there is complexity, which is stopping us from doing that. Now, naturally, what can help in this era, in this area, is stringent operational rigor to keep all these processes in sync and the work in tandem. There's a growing realization that the goals of ML are hard to accomplish without a solid framework to follow. So pretty much what you're saying. So that's why there is so much of focus and importance on ML ops to make sure that the deployment and building and monitoring of the ML models are streamlined. So that's what I would think is going to happen. And going forward, in order to thrive for any organization, they will have to focus on ML, and ML ops becomes indispensable part of it going forward.
And the data that you referred to regarding ML ops models not productionizing. In fact, there is a term for it, pilot purgatory, where they're just stuck
Oh,
there.
that's a good one. Let me write it down.
And
Okay.
yeah, and just Vishal, getting into the core of our discussion, given that we are focusing on building enduring business value, um, let us get into the why of it. Like, whenever we are looking here in our DI digital innovation team at anything new, we look at it from design thinking angles of desirability, viability, and feasibility, and finally we try to understand, is it a problem worth solving? So why now? The question comes after knowing what of ML ops. What exactly does it mean for business? Why are businesses or organizations talking about it, or why should they talk about it? What
Businesses should talk,
specific problem is it solving? Sorry. Yeah.
as I briefly mentioned, it is unlocking the hidden potential of generating the revenues. It is providing the kind of customer experience which our customers are getting used to. See, uh, for a lot of the organizations, it is no longer a choice. And why I say that is, the big tech companies, the digital natives, the cloud natives, if they set a standard on the customer experience, that becomes a gold standard. If XYZ company can provide me that experience, that becomes a de facto expectation from all other companies to provide that experience. And if they're not able to provide that, that company suddenly falls from the rank from wherever it is. So businesses don't really have a choice, but to make sure that they adopt it for their own growth and thriving. What specific problems it is trying to solve ML ops is, let's try to understand it by comparing it with DevOps, because I think everybody has a good understanding of what DevOps is. So let's try to see what is the difference between the two, which will help us in understanding what ML ops does. Both DevOps and ML ops pipelines include a code validate deploy loop, so there's no doubt about that. But ML ops pipelines also incorporates additional data and model steps that are required to build and train a machine learning model. That means there is added complexity. Let's look at some of those complexities. We already talked about data, and when there is tons of data, then we need to process the data, transform the data, and all that. The other important aspect is, unlike DevOps, MLOps is much more experimental in nature. What I mean by that is data scientists and machine learning engineers have to tweak various features, hyperparameters, parameters, and models while also keeping track of the data and code base for reproducible results. So this is the complexity MLOps has to handle very specifically, which we have not seen in regular application development. Second part is just number of teams, number of technical talent which is required to make sure that this value chain works in tandem. There are data engineers, there are business analysts, there are software engineers, there are data scientists, of course. All of them have to work together in tight synchrony, which is again, we have seen a little bit of development team working with the operations team on DevOps, but the complexity is much larger. So MLOps has added complexity to focus on, and there are certain critical things, the concept of which was unknown before, like production performance degradation of a system due to evolving data profile, which we call sometimes training serving skew. ML models in production can have reduced performance not only due to suboptimal code, but also due to constantly evolving data profiles, right? That does not happen in the software applications. I
Yeah.
mean, unfortunately, that's why we have a concept of legacy applications, because they don't get stale. Models can decay in more than conventional software systems, and we need to plan for it, right? And this can happen, this stalemate, that the models getting stale can happen because of the discrepancy between how we handle the data in training and serving pipeline, or the data itself can change
Yeah.
between when you train and when you serve. So we need to have appropriate monitoring and notifications and rollback processes, uh, which are very specific for these models and are specific to ML ops. So focus on management of the large data, building the right models, appropriate monitoring along with required collaboration between various teams are some of the specific problems which ML ops is solving for us.
And in terms of the, if you look at it from a business, stakeholder perspective, what kind of business KPI? But you have kind of mentioned that like the customer experience part, as well as on the, I would say broadly at a high level, top line and bottom line. Is it both ways, or is it purely, I would say, an operational excellence kind of a framework? Uh,
No. It don't even think of applying it to a particular area. As a business, you have to focus on your top line. You got to
Yeah.
you have to make sure that you focus on your operational excellence, and most important, make sure that you're focusing on providing the right experience to your customers. I'll give you, since you mentioned Viacom 18, I'll give some examples of how we used it for the top line, impacting the bottom line and experience perspective. So it might sound silly, but I'll still let you know that there are movie channels, right? And they show movies. But what happens is, any any channel will have only specific number of movies to show, right? So it is not by chance or by any manual process that decision is made to show what movie at what time of the day and what time and what day of the week. This is all driven by machine learning, just to make sure that the viewership increases. So there's algorithm which predicts which movie will generate the maximum amount of viewers. When we watch a movie which is showing up on a Saturday evening, we don't realize that this is not just showing up. This is what the machine has predicted based after looking at various parameters, and that's why this movie is getting shown. So this is impacting the top line. Bottom line. So there are, I don't know if you're watching an OTT program, and or if you're watching a movie. Sometimes you have seen smoking is injurious to health.
yeah. Yeah.
Do you think, I mean, there was a time when people used to watch the entire movie and figure out which scene has smoke in that and manually embed that. We have moved on from that era. So we don't have people watching movies in order to find out that there is smoke in this, and so all this is this automated fi- making sure that there is operational efficiency. I don't have people's watching movie. I mean, those people
Yeah.
hate me for that, but as an organization, you don't have to do that. And
Great.
experience, you have all I'm sure you have seen, you watch a movie and then you pop another movie saying, I think you'll like this. So these are all the facets of the business, be it from impacting the top line, impacting the operational efficiency, or impacting the customer experience. We can't miss any of that if you are a business, if you want to survive and thrive in this industry.
So I think you have kind of covered the length and breadth of the why of ML ops. Let us now get into the how of it, because I think that while we understand the importance, there are significant, barriers and drivers towards ML ops adoption, and it becomes very important on the ground what needs to happen. Where do we start? So while I bring up a visual, I'll also ask you a question. Um, to just start with, in the how part of our section of discussion, um, what are the different phases that an organization needs to focus on, to just get ready for this journey of ML ops?
Sure. Very important question, Abhishek. If somebody is serious in this area, I have divided, and this is by no means exhaustive, but I want to make sure that the audience understands it. So I've tried to simplify it. If you can bring the visual, it'd be great. But I'll start. The first phase being understanding the business requirement. Right? I've divided into 8 stages, and the first step out of that is understanding the business requirement. See, this is the initial stage where business goal or objectives are defined. It usually involves multiple stakeholders, the customers, the solution architects, and the technical teams. In this stage, you set the expectation, determine the solution feasibility, define success metrics, and design the blueprint. And according to me, this is the most important stage for any machine learning or machine learning operation, because if you have not figured out what does your customer want, whatever happens after, whatever the customer wants, whatever the business wants, whatever happens after that is a waste of time. I have C-suite executives come to me and say, oh, we want to find needle in the haystack. What can we find from the data and what can you deliver to the customers? And in my mind, I'm thinking, you don't know what you're talking about because you're starting from the wrong end. You have to start from the top. You have to start from the business requirement and then go deep into uh, um, how do we provide that to the business. This is the stage which also involves searching the appropriate input data and kind of models that are to be tried for that kind of data. So this feasibility study, this understanding of what we are doing and how we are doing is supposed to happen in stage number one, called understanding the business requirement. Second one is, Abhishek, I don't know if everybody else can see it. I can't see the
Oh,
visual.
I
You
have
think?
enabled the screen sharing. I'm assuming at this point that the audience is able to see. Um,
We can see
I,
the visual, Vishal. Yeah,
Okay, awesome, awesome.
yeah.
All
thanks,
right, great.
thanks, thanks.
Okay, awesome. So the second stage is exploratory data analysis, EDA. It refers to the process of performing initial investigation on data, so as to cover patterns, spot anomalies, to test hypotheses, and to check assumptions with the help of summary statistics or graphical representations. So that's our stage number two. Stage three is data preparation. This is where your data engineers come into picture. Data preparation involves gathering, formatting, cleaning, and storing the data as needed. This also includes the task of feature engineering and then selecting the set of features that contribute to the output of the underlying problem. The important aspect in this stage is a complete pipeline which needs to be designed and coded to produce clean and compatible data to be fed to the next stage for model development. And this is also the stage where it is important part to identify what kind of architecture, what kind of pipeline you're going to use, which is going to be effective and high in performance for you, and also is going to be cost effective. So very important stage of data preparation before we go into the model training, because we need to make some decisions at this point. Stage number
Okay.
4, model training. So as soon as the data is prepared, you move on to the next stage of training your ML model. Since ML solutions are heavily research based, ample experimentation is needed to obtain the optimal route. The initial phase of training needs to be iterative with bunch of different types of models with different types of data and parameters. This is the stage where we'll be narrowing down to the best solution using several quantitative measures like accuracy, precision, and recall. Just highlight one small portion here. The part here is this is the stage where data scientists kind of face big challenge of model reproducibility. Hence, we need to make sure that there needs to be proper focus on tracking the model lineage, model versions, model managing model artifacts, and making sure that their transitions, as the transitions happen through the various life cycle. So, model training is a critical component and critical stage of what we are trying to achieve. The fifth stage is model validation. ML model is trained on historical data and needs to be tested on unseen data to check the model stability. The model needs to perform well in the validation stage before we make sure that it's ready for deployment. Stage 6 is our model deployment. This is a stage where locally developed solution is launched on the production server so it can reach to the actual customers. This
Mhm.
is where this is where the deployment and development teams collaborate to execute this launch. There are mainly two ways of deploying an ML model. A, static deployment. Deployment is where the model is packaged into an installable application software and then deployed. This is used probably where we want to use batch scoring of request. The second one, obviously, is dynamic deployment, where the model is deployed using a web framework and is offered as an API endpoint that responds to the user request. I mean, this dynamic deployment we can do in different modes. Deploying it as a server, deploying in a container, or a serverless deployment. So that's our model deployment. After the model deployment, our stage 7 is model monitoring. Creating and deploying a solution is not the end of the service, especially in the case of ML side. Models, as I said, are trained on local and past data. It is crucial to examine how they perform on the new and unseen data. This is the stage where the stability and success of the solution are actually established. Actively monitoring the quality of model in production will allow our systems to detect the performance degradation which we talked about. This will also act as a cue that 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 will let us know that the iterative experimentation and retraining of model has to be done. There, in this stage, we also need to make sure that there is an ability to configure a threshold value for the business business metrics which we initially talked about. If a threshold value is crossed, the platform shall raise alerts for notifying the ops teams to investigate what is going on and possibly work with the data scientists to trigger the retraining of the model. So model monitoring is, if you ask me, is one of the core of MLOps stages, because if you're not focused on that, then the value which you are able to provide to the business in the beginning will deteriorate very quickly, and then that is not a good thing. And see, the impact of that varies. if if you are in my previous example, if you're able to show a movie selection which is not as per the liking of the customer, it is okay. The world will not stop existing. But there are certain complicated cases where, for example, if you're detecting fraud, and if you are not able to do that because you have not properly done the monitoring, then hence, and you're working on a degraded system, that is not a good thing. So monitoring and ability to understand when is the right time to retrain is very critical in this world, in this ML ops. The last phase is retraining the model. Model retraining is an unavoidable stage, as we talked about, they're because the models are heavily dependent on data, and the data trends change with time. So efficient model training helps to keep the solution relevant and saves the cost of recreating new solutions. So I think these, according to me, are the important stages, right from making sure that we understand the business problem and making sure the models which we have created, and we are after passing through all the stages, are able to provide the right value, are able to meet the right matrix which we generated in stage number one.
And I guess the phase 7 and the phase 8, they are the ones which may be building that endurance, right? The enduring
Mhm.
business value. It is the
Absolutely.
monitoring and the retraining which would be giving you enduring business value. Yeah.
Absolutely. One has to make sure that i- i- we are able to create those alerts and automation to take corrective action in case of a model drift due to difference in training and the inference data. So that is the critical part.
And just Vishal, I mean, when I'm as an organization, when I'm looking at setting this up, it seems like it's a factory model, right? An assembly line model. The first
Mhm.
time when I'm setting it up, that would be different as compared to post setup. There would be a flow which would be established. So, if, what would be the considerations of setting this up in the first place? You have touched upon that in between. You are mentioning the stakeholder side of things, which is the different groups who need to come together. You have mentioned that earlier also. That
Mhm.
that is the ops part of it, which is different from any other framework. So the top down part, which you again touched upon in the beginning, in these phases, what is the stakeholder nature of stakeholders or groups, different groups who interact with each other? I'm assuming it starts with the business, in the business requirements, and that's where the why gets answered. But
Mhm.
this seems like a very hybrid structure working together to produce value.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So stakeholders which need to come together and work together, in my mind, start with the customer, and let's try to understand what does the customer want, and through our business analyst or whatever the structure of the organization, so there needs to be an involvement from that component which can define the right problems and the right business metrics. Then there are solution architects. There needs to be a mapping of that requirement into the world of ML, because without that mapping, I mean, you can ask for blue sky, but we don't know if it is feasible or not. So there needs to be a solution architect. And then, of course, there needs to be data engineers who focus on building the data pipeline which we talked about, the data scientists who are involved in making sure that they're building the right models as per the business requirements. Then, and people don't realize this, there is a need of ML engineers who make sure that whatever models these data scientists are building actually get into the business application so that customers can get value out of that. And then, of course, there are ops teams who has to constantly monitor on degradation and make sure that they're letting the world know if there's something goes wrong. So this world of ML ops is again, I don't want to say it in a negative way. It's slightly more complicated because all of these things, all of these stakeholders need to come together to make it successful.
It's a very collaborative framework.
Absolutely.
Um, yeah, just building on top of that, like the build and buy consideration, right? Which every organization goes through. Um, when you put this framework in that perspective or consideration, what would be your recommendation, or what would be your approach towards build and buy, build versus buy?
Okay, so I want to divide this build versus buy into two. A, infrastructure component of that, and B, the MLOps framework part of it.
Okay.
So let's first talk about the infrastructure. Wherein, if I look at from pure engineering perspective, cloud computing companies have invested hundreds of billions of dollars in building the infrastructure and its management. One of the Canalys reports suggests that uh, public cloud infrastructure spending is estimated to grow to nearly 500 billion by 23. So these companies are doing a lot of investment and research into the specialized hardware, softwares, and various things which are required to make the client successful. I would not let that go unnoticed if I'm talking from an engineer's perspective. Also, look, there's a consideration of time and effort, human resources, time to profit, opportunity cost. All of these things come into picture. Look, if you ask me, where do I want where do I want my data scientist to spend most of his or her time in? To doing the to doing the core work of building the models, right? As against uh, focusing on non-data science tasks such as tracking, monitoring, configuration, resource management, infrastructure, right? So this wasted time is often referred to as hidden technical debt, and this is one of the common bottlenecks for the machine learning team. So if I have to think about it, I would want to use these clouds, but there are companies who have been interested with private and sensitive data, which can't leave their servers because there's a small chance of vulnerability and all that. So for such cases, we would recommend an hybrid approach. Uh, Existing 100% on prem, I don't know if it is the best idea or not, given the current circumstances. So that's my view, and only my view on the infrastructure side. Now let's talk about the end-to-end ML solutions. Again, uh, two options there. There are, as usual, there are fully managed services that provide developers and data scientists with the ability to build and train and deploy these models. And a couple of examples that pop out of the mind is SageMaker, and Google has also recently announced its AI platform pipeline. So there's one approach of using that. But again, it comes with its own limitations. A single point of failure. We have recently seen some outages in some of the big public clouds. That's one. Second, if you don't like the tools provided by them, God help you, you can't do much with that. So there are limitations on that. The other option is there are the other option is custom built MLOps solution. So there are loads of very good tools which are also available, and these end-to-end solutions, if somebody wants, they can build the entire ML ops framework using these tools. So I mean, there are various options available, and one has to look at the business. One has to look at their own business model. One has to look at what expertise do they have. They have to look at what kind of speed to market they are looking, and of course the expenditure which is involved in all of these. So based on various considerations, there is options of public cloud on-prem hybrid, and there is option of complete end-to-end ML solutions versus building the custom MLOps solution.
And what you are referring to in between, which is um, the time to market and all those aspects, right? Your data scientists should actually focus on the core. In fact, those are the things while interacting with our set of customers and in some conversations with you also, we realize that, and you know which results in our development of some of our in-house assets, which is around the EDA, exploratory data analysis, to reduce
Awesome.
the data scientist's time. And at the on the other end, things like explainable AI, which is basically explaining the output to a business, democratizing the ML model to open up to the business ecosystem. Um, Again, uh, with various impacting various business KPIs. Um,
And I'm hoping that all of these are on some public cloud,
yeah,
or where are they?
Um, so most given again infra being a key consideration there, we have an Azure DevOps framework
Okay,
which we have used, and that's purely given the disposition of our customers towards that.
sure,
But
sure,
yeah, these are built on top of that. But yes, the ones which we have built in house, they are multi-cloud, they're applicable across.
awesome.
Um, what we'll do is we'll slowly move towards more future-looking, forward-looking, one or two questions, and I guess in the interest of time, also we'll look at concluding the discussion. So, getting into the forward-looking mode, um, what are the challenges that you are foreseeing in MLOps adoption um, currently or maybe in the future?
Oh, okay, we are already hitting at 7:45. In the interest of time, I'll answer this very quickly. First, lack of focus on the ROI. As I mentioned that if you are if and this is true from two perspectives. A, making sure that you have identified the right business problem to solve. That's one part. B, making sure that the solution or the model or the which you have developed is integrated into the business flow so that customers can get value out of that. So these two things, I think there is still conceptually and fundamentally people understand that, but trying to make sure that it is implemented, I think it still remains the challenge. People still want to work with the data and figure out what can be done with that, as against this is what I want to do, and then come down and see whether we can get it delivered by that or not. That's one. Second is team silos. What happens is there are business analysts, data engineers, data scientists, ops team, and all of them belong to those particular teams, and they prefer to work in their silos. I'm a data scientist, I don't care about data engineering. I'm a data scientist, I don't know how ops work. So there needs to be an overlap between these functions, at least from understanding perspective, and they need to understand and appreciate what the larger ecosystem is focusing on to help them support do their job in a better manner. So I think that's the second challenge. Then there is when we talk about, there are so many challenges in this machine learning that sometimes we take security for granted.
Yeah,
There are a number of common security pitfalls in MLOps that should be avoided. It is important that organizations have appropriate practices in place to ensure secure development. I think that is also very important. And last, but definitely not the least, appreciate the concept of drift and models getting stale, and constant monitoring and retraining. Not a it doesn't come intuitively to everyone, and people do not realize that data is changing faster and evolving faster than we can comprehend. So Don't rely on the judgment. Rely and focus on the monitoring to make sure and understand what is going on in your ecosystem. So these, according to me, are major challenges in ML or ML adoption, ML ops adoption.
And just the final question, where do you when do you see an ML ops get adoption reaching levels of the current DevOps kind of adoption, or are there what what would be the variable there that will be governing? Will it be by industry, or will it be that by the technology readiness? What would be those some of those elements?
I think it's a matter of time, Abhishek. I mean, I don't want to comment on the time frame, but I definitely tell you it's a matter of time because, as I said, there is no option for the companies but to adopt it. Plus, there is so much of investment going on in the industry to build the right kind of tools, to build the right kind of infrastructure, to build the right kind of platforms, as you also mentioned. It is just matter of time, and some of some of the big tech companies are already leading the way for this, and also some of the digital natives and the startups. They start with ML in mind, so they don't know any other way of any other way of operation. So they, along with these big tech companies, are going to set the path, and we all will be forced, even if we like or not, to follow that path. So adoption, and we are already seeing great adoption in healthcare, finance, and advertising industries already. So it's just a matter of time.
And interestingly, they are the sensitive ones, right, in terms of data.
Mhm. Yes.
Um, so I'll just I have few questions from the audience, and again, in the interest of time, will is it okay if we take up one question? Is that fine, Vishal?
Mhm.
So we have a question from Jastiran. Um, his question is: we see data annotation as a critical component of ML ops, right? Data annotation as a in itself nowadays is quite emerging. What's your take on that? And where in the phases that you had mentioned, if you have to point out that that's where it is important or it is not, what's your take on?
So first of all, I agree 100% with my friend Jess. It is a critical component of ML ops, and it will fit right into our data preparation stage, is what I would think. Jess.
Thanks, Vishal. And uh, I think you have touched upon this that companies they generally struggle to productionize the ML models, and what would be the reasons? I think you have during the
Yeah.
discussion you have touched upon this, and there's just one last question, interesting one. What should the core ML ops team look like? Again, we have touched upon the different stakeholders who need to come together. The question here is when should it be set up? In if
So
you have to again put it in the phase framework that 8 phase framework that you have.
I I don't know how to answer this. According to me, we need subject matter experts in all of the fields, right? So it's not that I don't need data scientists or I don't need data engineer, I don't need business analysts, or I don't need software ML engineers or ops teams. It just has to come together. The way we operate sometimes is based on the sprints. So we identify the problem which we are going to solve in a particular sprint and bring all of these teams together, or the members of this team together, so they can operate as a unit. Classic. This is the way classic agile mode of operation has worked, right? There is squads and chapters.
Yeah,
There are
yeah.
people working in the chapters, and then they come together to form the squad and make sure that they deliver value to the business. And I think that's the mode of operation I would foresee for MLOps team also.
Okay, great. So thanks a lot, Vishal. I think we have also covered the questions from the audience, and thanks for your time today. I think it was very much enlightening and also getting to know from the practitioner's perspective. And you're devoting almost an hour to us. Thanks a lot for this. Um,
No worries. It was my pleasure, Abhishek. It was pleasure talking on this topic because A, this is close to my heart, and B, it is very critical in our organization. I mean, it's critical in all the organizations, but it's very critical in the organization where I am right now. So thank you for giving me time to share my thoughts here.
thanks a lot, Vishal. And I would also like to thank the audience today who attended this session and took the time out. And the organizing team, the software product engineering business unit, and our head of AIML COE, Data, who actually is kind of the architect behind all the discussion that we had. So and the digital innovation team, and also very important, the marketing team who brought us this audience, who ensured that we had this. Thanks a lot, and we will see you in the next edition of the Fireside Chat series. um, Thanks, Vishal. Thanks again.
Thank, thank,
And
thank you, everyone. Thanks.